talk a little bit about some of the current situations that we are now facing and, what's coming from the current Trump administration and how it is that they are trying to conduct themselves when it comes to dealing with the fact that we have a slowing economy for the majority of the people, while at the same time trying to share with the people the idea that they are going to create an environment that is going to benefit everybody. And this is a major struggle. They constantly are blaming everything except for themselves on the current situation. And this coming from Mike Johnson, it just totally lends into this. So let me play this real quick, and then we're going to start breaking this down a little bit better. But this is, let me see, make sure I can get through the commercial here first. Hold on here.
Your $200 puffer.
Let me get that out of there first. Let me skip the commercial. Bang. All right. So here he is. I don't know if you can hear the question. The question itself is really quiet. But it's basically, they're asking him about the grocery prices and inflation, and then his response is just so telling of a politician. But listen to what he has to say.
Yeah, but the USDA has reported, and all of the economists have shown, food prices always go up. There's an inflationary level that's built into grocery prices, but they're going up at a much slower pace. In other words, the economic policies, even though all the provisions of the Working Families Tax Cut have not yet been implemented, that's going to make a dramatic effect. It's going to be like jet fuel to the economy. We have all these
promises, man. I love it. Oh, this is going to be like jet fuel for the economy.
growth policies that will bring down costs, increase wages, increase jobs, and more access to the economic rung, so that more people can climb up the ladder. But in the meantime, even the fact that we have made these positive steps and momentum, grocery prices are rising at their slowest level in many years. You should look into that. So, I mean,
that's what I find very interesting. It's like its slowest pace in many years. So here we are, just come off of one of the highest inflationary pressures we have seen in like our entire lifetime, really. Most of us being, born after 1960, the idea that the inflationary pressure that we had experienced in the early 80s, most of us never really knew, right? Like, I mean, we were kids at the time. It was people who were older than that actually experienced it. Most of us were pretty young. So it's only been in the recent years that we have actually experienced any kind of significant inflation. And so he's comparing now to one of the worst inflationary pressures that we have ever seen and saying this is a good thing. Like, I find that quite amusing. Like, hey, let me sugarcoat this for you, right? I mean, total political, right? Total political move.
that is an exhibit C, and the argument that it's Republican policies that are the only thing that's going to bring that down. The reason that your grocery prices are so high, it's multifaceted, but it's because we had 4 years of Bidenomics. Remember?
Right? Bidenomics did it to you, suckers. Right? It was Bidenomics that did it. Blame it on Biden. Biden did it, right? Love it. I love it. Just focus the blame on anybody other than yourself.
They tried to tell you that Bidenomics are so good for you and your family, and everybody went, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, I totally agree. What are you talking about?
In the election last fall, because they were trying to sell you a bill of goods that wasn't true. And the reason that inflation rose is because, as was noted earlier, the big signature pieces of legislation that they passed in the Biden administration were disastrous for the economy. And it made inflation rise rapidly. Why? Because when you pour more dollars into the economy, that is the effect. It's just...
Okay, so we already know that's not the case. Quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4 failed to produce an inflationary scenario, even though the Federal Reserve poured massive amounts of dollars into the system, but it didn't really actually get into the system. It just really ended up on the big bank's balance sheet and never really actually enters the system unless it was lent into the system. So it's not just a matter of printing up dollars. It's the way those dollars actually move into the system. So it's very naive to say that and think that is the case. Now, during the Biden administration, it was saving the Federal Reserve. And now most people don't have any idea on what it is that I am referring to when I say that. But there was a reflationary concept that was brought to the monetary policy. They needed elevated inflation. I've been bringing this up quite a bit here on my channel. And I keep going back to this Lael Brainerd speech because I think she is very much admitting it to the people, to everybody out there, that the Federal Reserve was going to fail if they did not have an inflationary scenario that was elevated. Like I have said it over and over again, this political statement coming from Mike Johnson is just totally playing into what it is that the Federal Reserve needed. Blame Biden, blame him for all this inflation. We're doing our best to stop the inflation. Wink, wink, right? Because we're really not. We want the elevated inflation. That's what the politicians are trying not to let you know. But they very much did want inflation. Listen to it, right? Of course, it's not entirely clear how to move underlying trend inflation smoothly to our target on a sustained basis in the presence of a very flat Phillips curve. One possibility we might refer to as opportunistic reflation. This is the Federal Reserve telling you that they were needing an opportunity to reflate. Did Biden not do that? Like the Biden administration gave the opportunity for the Federal Reserve to do exactly what it is that they needed to do. Referring to opportunistic and reflation would be to take advantage of a modest increase in actual inflation to demonstrate to the public our commitment to our inflation goal on a symmetric basis. How is it that Biden failed when the Fed absolutely needed an inflationary scenario? How is it that Biden failed? Everybody who said Biden is a miserable president who caused an inflationary scenario adds power to the power pendulum that was needed of elevated inflation expectation to create an opportunity of reflation for the Federal Reserve. Bang. Tell me this wasn't played out for you. It was an accident. I mean, here it is. This speech was given May 16th of 2019, before we ever had an inflationary nightmare taking place that everybody was blaming on Biden. Here it is. They're asking and begging for an opportunity to reflate. Is it me? Or am I not looking out there at some of the statements like this particular politician is having, talking about how we can blame Biden for the mistakes that was created within this economy that totally lend the power straight up to the Federal Reserve that they needed? Am I going to listen to this Mike Johnson dude? Absolutely not. Do you think I have any trust or belief for somebody who is trying to blame Biden for something that the Federal Reserve absolutely needed? And then even by blaming Biden, you're adding power to that power pendulum, which actually creates the very thing that the Federal Reserve needs. This guy is lending into it. I don't know how many people can see it. I know a lot of people listen to my videos and think, dude, this guy is absolutely nuts. He has no idea what he is talking about. And I have every single bit of all this information that I have delivered to you guys, I've gotten directly from the FOMC, from the Federal Open Market Committee. This is a speech given by Lael Brainerd. All right? The disconnect between inflation and employment in the new normal. Right? Go look it up yourself. I think my favorite one is monetary policy strategies for a low neutral interest rate world. I mean, considering that he straight up says it right in there. Today we face an altogether different set of problems stemming from a very low neutral interest rate. That is the short-term real interest rate consistent with an economy operating at its potential alongside low and stable inflation. Ironically, the problem we need to solve these days is a risk of inflation that is persistently too low rather than too high. This is a speech that was given in November of 2018. November of 2018, there was an issue with the Federal Reserve seeking inflation, not trying to get away from it, not trying to protect it, not trying to figure out what they're going to do to solve an inflationary problem. They were looking for it. How do we get inflation? Looking for opportunistic reflation. Every time I hear, oh, blame Biden, Bidenomics did it, suffering under the weight of Bidenomics, that is them trying to add more power to this very thing. Blame Biden for the inflation, whatever you do, more power to the Federal Reserve. I know it's so hard for a lot of people to internalize this because it's been so pushed out there that money printer go burr, prices go up, the Fed doesn't know what they are doing, it's causing pain and suffering to the people. Everybody is now trying to question how it is that the Federal Reserve is going to be moving going into the future, thinking that the Federal Reserve is making snap judgments and flying by the seat of their pants. That is not the case. Nothing could be further from the truth. I've gone over this information so many times. I find that when I see stuff like this coming from Mike Johnson, talking about how it is that they're going to bring all this wonderful opportunity, give you a rocket ship fuel for the economy. There's all this wonderfulness that is on the way. Man, is that not the same promises that is always delivered to the people to keep them encouraged? What is actually delivered? Nothing. Not even remotely close to what it is that they were promising. Doesn't even come close. And the people then fall for it. Blame Biden, and then we got a rocket ship fuel for, rocket fuel for the economy coming up. I just laugh at this, and I'm thinking to myself, man, how is it that people continually fall for this stuff over and over again? How this guy does not have any idea on what it is that people are going to suffer through going into the future, when the promises of better wages and better opportunities and all this other stuff never presents itself. Is anybody going to come back to Mike Johnson and say, hey, dude, where are those promises that you had delivered? Where are they at? They didn't show up. I didn't get mine. It's over and over again. You think about it, like Jerome Powell straight up told us. He said he was going to create pain and suffering for the economy, that the majority of the people were going to do it. You think about it. Here it is. Lael Brainerd back in 2019 was saying, hey, we need opportunistic reflation. And John Williams is saying the problem that they needed to solve was the inflation that was persistently too low rather than too high. Then you got old Jerome Powell, August 22nd of 2020. I'm sorry. Wrong speech there. It's this one. August 27th. There we go. August 27th of 2020. And now in this speech, it is just amazing to think that he had ultimately explained what it is that was about ready to happen to the economy, and nobody listened. Nobody listened. And then when it happened, everybody says, oh man, the Fed doesn't know what's going on. They lost control. And I'm thinking, did anybody not listen to the Fed just a few years ago when they said that they were looking for this exact thing to be taking place? All this inflation, inflationary pressure, elevated inflation expectation. I mean, there was a few years ago that they were begging for it. Here it is. And now people say that they lost control. And I'm thinking, no way. This is the environment they wanted to be in. The decline in the assessments of the neutral Fed funds rate has profound implications for monetary policy, with interest rates generally running closer to their effective lower bound. Even in good times, the Fed has less scope to support the economy during economic downturns by simply cutting the Fed funds rate. The result can be worse economic outcomes in terms of both employment and price stability, with the cost of such outcomes likely falling hardest on those least able to bear them. They knew it was going to be a painful experience for those at the end of the line. He wasn't done. That was just the beginning. He said it. We are at the end of our pitiful rope here. We have no more room for adjustments. We're down at the lower bound of zero. The neutral interest rate is low. And if we run into a time of crisis or even a slowdown in financial conditions, there is nothing that they can do in order to support the economy, and it's going to be the hardest on those who can afford it the least. He said it straight up. The persistent undershoot of inflation from its 2% objective is a cause for concern. Many find it counterintuitive that the Fed would want to push up inflation. Really? Find it counterintuitive? Some didn't even know if you could actually do it. Most people want to blame it on Biden when it happens here in a few months because it hadn't happened yet when Powell was making this statement. It hadn't taken place yet. Remember, this is August of 2020. Inflation took place after this. After all, low and stable inflation, I love that, ironically to try and push up inflation. After all, low and stable inflation is essential for a well-functioning economy, and we are certainly mindful that higher prices for essential items such as food, gasoline, and shelter add to the burdens faced by many families, especially those struggling with lost jobs and incomes. There he said it, straight up. You're going to suffer the most. Those at the end of the line with lost jobs and incomes, you're going to suffer. Everybody else is going to be annoyed, right? They're going to have to deal with the fact that they're going to be a little frustrated with the current situation of inflation. However, the people at the end of the line are actually going to suffer in pain and misery. They knew it before it happened. They knew it was going to take place. I mean, I don't know how many videos I did saying the Fed wants you in pain and misery. This is what I was talking about. They knew that they needed to do this to you and that it was going to be a pain and suffering experience for you. However, inflation that is persistently too low can pose serious risks to the economy. Inflation that runs below its desired level can lead to an unwelcome fall in long-term inflation expectations, which in turn can pull actual inflation even lower, resulting in an adverse cycle of ever lower inflation and inflation expectations. So here it is. All right. The Federal Reserve is getting exactly what they wanted, and every single time I hear somebody blaming Biden for the inflationary scenario that we are experiencing, they might as well just be adding juice to the Federal Reserve's power. Every single time. This isn't like thinking in a way that says the Fed's money printer is causing inflation, which most people would think is some sort of fight or countering the Federal Reserve, is doing the exact opposite. It is giving the power to the Federal Reserve that they were needing. They still need it. They still need it because it pulls that neutral interest rate off the lower bound of zero. Okay? I mean, he said it right there. The decline in the assessments of the neutral Fed funds rate has a profound implication for monetary policy. With interest rates generally running closer to their effective lower bound, even in good times, the Fed has less scope to support the economy. That right there was a major problem. I don't know how many people realized it. That neutral interest rate being so close to the lower bound of zero, essentially destroying their monetary policy. It was no longer an effective tool. This is something where is this coming from? This is Jerome Powell's speech, August 22nd of 2025. And I thought this was a pretty good speech within itself because it's talking about the effective lower bound. Says At the time of our last review, we were living in a new normal characterized by the proximity of interest rates with the proximity of interest rates to the effective lower bound along with low growth, low inflation, and a very flat Phillips curve, meaning that inflation was not very responsive to slack in the economy. You hear, like, remember at the end of the first Trump administration, ultra low unemployment, the best jobs number in history, and Donald Trump was screaming there's no inflation. The Fed should be printing money. That was a very flat Phillips curve, and it was destroying the Federal Reserve's monetary policy. They were not able to conduct themselves in the way that they could be able to support the economy during a downturn. They were too close to that effective lower bound, too close to zero. Right? Think about it. This is a speech that was given just a few months ago. Still talking about it. Like, people are like, dude, that's not a problem. Yeah, it is. Because the Federal Reserve is bringing it up just a few months ago. It is still very much in their mind. People who want to deny it are the people who don't understand monetary policy. All right. To me, a statistic that captures that era is that our policy rate was stuck at the effective lower bound for 7 long years following the onset of the global financial crisis in 2008. Many here will recall the sluggish growth and painfully slow recovery of that era. It appeared highly likely that if the economy experienced even a mild downturn, our policy rate would be back at the effective lower bound very quickly, probably for another extended period. Inflation and inflation expectations could then decline in a weak economy, raising real interest rates as nominal rates were pinned near zero. Higher real rates would further weigh on job growth and reinforce the downward pressure on inflation and inflation expectations, triggering an adverse dynamic. Does it sound like they were concerned about inflation going up, or were they worried about it being too low? They were worried about it being too low. Downward pressure on inflation and inflation expectations, triggering an adverse dynamic. This is him saying it just back in August. The economic conditions that brought that policy rate to the effective lower bound and drove the 2020 framework changes changes were thought to be rooted in a slow-moving global factors that would persist for an extended period and might well have done so if not for the pandemic. Oh, the pandemic saved the day. All of a sudden, they got all this inflation, all the inflation that they could ever have dreamed of. Pulling that neutral interest rate and the Fed funds rate away from the lower bound of zero. Da 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 da. How many people knew this? How many people looked at it and said, oh my gosh, man, can you believe it? COVID actually was a huge benefit to the Federal Reserve's monetary policy. They totally needed it. They were looking for opportunistic reflation, and did they not receive it? Holy moly. Nobody sees it this way. Not this dude, Mike Johnson, like he's like, oh yeah, let's point the finger at Bidenomics. Let's see if we can get some more juice out of the inflationary pressure. See if maybe we can lend a little bit of more power to the Federal Reserve. See if maybe we can keep that neutral interest rate off the lower bound of zero. Maybe we can jack that up a little bit by blaming Bidenomics. Okay? Maybe we can blame it on tariffs. Don't worry, we're going to juice the economy. Don't worry. You keep your head up. You keep your spirits going. Don't worry about that, but maybe we can create another inflationary pressure within the economy to support the Federal Reserve's opportunistic reflation opportunities, right? I don't know how many people see it. Nobody, right? It's difficult. It's difficult to understand it in this fashion through the credible threat theory. Once you see it, it makes sense. Everything starts to line up and really start to make sense. But if you're seeing it through a failed political move, you will see it. You can prove it to yourself through all the evidence that is out there. And by doing that, you are literally giving the power to the Federal Reserve that they needed. They provide you with the ability to use that information for their benefit, and you actually think it's going against them. It's not. It's not. All right, let's read some of these comments. Deplorable. Shall we blame RFK, JFK, Nixon, or maybe Truman? I think Truman was the only one with the balanced budget. Maybe there was a couple of others. It doesn't really matter because it doesn't have any kind of length or longevity to it. The problem that we face is the ever-increasing amounts of new money, and the people who have first access to that money move into a luxurious experience with that new money, because that's what you're going to do with new money. And by moving into the luxurious experience, you are going to create inequality every single time, guaranteed, no doubt about it. And now, I'm not trying to say that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what is taking place, and that's what's going to happen every single time. So, I don't know what else to tell you, but that's the way it is, All right. If poor people would just stop drinking soda. I guess I guess you could try that. I don't know. All right. When I voted for Trump, I thought he was going to be the bull in the china shop, but I meant on the government. Trump, not on the people. Oh, no way. No way. Why would Trump do that? That doesn't make any sense. Have you ever heard of anybody like literally shooting themselves on the foot and saying, "Hey, I did that for you"? No, of course not. That doesn't make any sense. They will say, "Hey, man, I tell you what, we're going to slow down so you guys can catch up. If you vote for me, we'll slow down so you can catch up." And then when you vote for them, they're like, "Oh, sorry, man, we're just too fast for you." Sorry about that. Yeah, you could try. You could try and hurry up. They're not going to shoot themselves in the foot for your benefit. I don't know why they would do that. Like, I don't know anybody in their right mind who would say, "Man, I have earned a whole lot. I am going to punish myself so people out there can have a better opportunity than me." I've never heard anybody say that. Anybody who is saying that is lying. They lie. There might be one individual out there who really feels sympathetic, has sympathetic feelings to all the people out there and says, "You know what, I'm going to give up all my money." Most people who have worked very hard to acquire that of abundance in their life want to enjoy it, and they certainly don't want to give it to people who haven't. That's all there is, right? And that's the way it's going to be forever. There's no changing that. That is human beings. If Cheney did shoot his friend in the face, with friends like that, who needs enemies? Yeah, he did shoot that guy. Let's face it, you have a point. There will always be rich people. You have to find out what they want, they're willing to spend their money on. Did anybody hear that Mondani was found celebrating with George Soros' child right after the victory? Most Americans don't have $500, let alone $106K. No, that's absolutely true. And that's really where I think a lot of times these politicians are really just kind of disconnected from what it is that most people are facing. Like, there's a certain energy that you carry with you when you do not have the ability to provide for yourself, at least in a way that can get anything you want at any given time. And now what I mean by that is I know what it's like, because it wasn't that long ago that I would struggle to be able to buy toilet paper, milk, pay the bill, whatever it was. I struggled to do that, and I did that for a very long time. That feeling that you carry from that doesn't just go away. I still carry that feeling, even though I know I have the ability to go buy a gallon of milk, go buy toilet paper, to pay the bill. I know it, but there was a time in my life that I couldn't do it, and I tell you, that energy still carries with me, and it's very difficult to shake that. I know what it's like to have the feeling, because I lived that way for so long. These politicians, they only assume what that feeling is like. Now, I'm not saying there isn't some politicians out there who suffered when they were growing up or had to live poorly or whatever. I mean, there is those circumstances that happen out there, but for the most part, most of these people live a life of luxury, far beyond that of what the average individual is experiencing with their life. They don't know what it's like to struggle for being able to try and provide a gallon of milk for your family. They don't know what that's like. They can assume they know what it's like. They might remember an experience from the past of having that, but they don't know it today. And it's a difference. There's a huge difference. So these people, they don't relate. They don't know. They cannot possibly be making decisions that is going to benefit you. They do not know you. They can't. There's no way. And then on top of it, whatever decision they make first will be in benefit to them. You come second or third or fourth. They're number one. They will always take care of themselves first. Today, working people are expected to work, save, invest, uphold the economy. They did that before because they got paid a living wage, got a pension, and spent during their vacation time. Yeah, and you're right. I mean, that's the way that it was structured back in the day, and the people had an easy opportunity to take advantage of that. They're not provided with that opportunity like that, but they are provided with a whole realm of opportunities out there that they could take advantage of. It doesn't look like that anymore. So we can understand that it's not something that we can use to take advantage of. Like that old school mentality idea, that's from long ago. If you're going to have an average day job, then you can expect that it's not going to be enough. And if you have an average day job, you can expect that after your average day job, you're going to have to put hours and time into something else in order to acquire what it is that we need in our life, because we don't have any other choice. It's not up to them to fix the situation for us. They're not going to fix that. They can't. And as much as you sit around waiting for them to do that, you're going to suffer the consequences from that, because they're not going to fix it. Not only can they not fix it, they're not going to. So they can't do it and they won't do it. So there's no point in even thinking they will. It's all about thinking, what do I do because of this situation we now face? I mean, you can, all the time people are like, dude, let's blame the person who put the hole in the boat. And now that we're drowning, we can sit there and spend time and effort and energy and money and experience and everything else blaming the person who put the hole in the boat. Meanwhile, none of that is going to do anything about saving you. Not a single thing, right? Because with the hole in the boat and the blaming of people out there, blaming other people about who put the hole in the boat, will still have a boat sinking. It doesn't matter who you blame. Doesn't matter how you come up with the theory of how the hole got into the boat. The fact is that the hole is in there and you got to do something about that. That's the case. That's why we're all sitting here trying to figure out what it is that we need to do, because we know there's a damn hole in the boat and we got to get to shore. I mean, once you get to shore and you get to safety and all that other stuff, yeah, you can go through all the effort and ideas and history and everything else trying to figure out who to blame is. But right now, it doesn't really do much to blame anybody. Damn Biden administration. Bidenomics did this to you. All right, let's blame somebody for the hole in the boat. All right. Brad, what's the point of having elections if they can't do anything about anything? Just anoint Trump the dictator for life and let things fly. What's the point of having elections? Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what the point of having an election is, because here in Oregon, it doesn't really matter who you vote for. We have a mail-in ballot, and we have like 3 electoral votes. So by the time our votes get counted, the president has already accepted, right? Accepted the win. And I'm like, hey, Oregon hasn't voted yet, but you got 3 electoral votes. You don't really matter. You're not going to sway it either way. So voting in Oregon is essentially pointless. It doesn't mean anything. Yeah, I mean, it literally means nothing. It was like, hey, my vote, you want to count it? And they're like, no, not really. We don't need to. It's just like, but I voted. And it was like, well, you'll get counted, but you don't count. Huh. That's cool. All right. I mean, who cares? Voting in Oregon is lame. It's the dumbest thing in the world. I mean, voting local votes is cool, but voting for president, it doesn't matter because by the time they count our votes, they have already accepted it. Voting mostly matters with local state matters. Yeah, and I agree. That's what I mean. I just said that too. Voting without accountability is just a census poll. We should make the AI president and then vote if we want to do what it says or not. My weekend staff just basically quit because pregnancy. Who cares about my business and my family? I think Oregon has more than 3 electoral votes, but I guess I get your point. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many it is, but it's not very many, and it's not going to be enough to sway the vote one way or the other, right? Because again, like ours is like at the very end of the line by the time ours gets counted. All right, I saw the whole. Actually, let's find out. I'm kind of curious now. Uh, is it 8? Did I get that right? Is it 8? That doesn't seem right. Huh. My computer is running slow. Anyway, it don't matter. Alright, reading more comments. Oops. Hey everyone, hit the like. Yes, please do. When you guys hit the like button, what you do is you're getting the YouTube algorithm to pick up the video and spread it around for more people to join in. Alright. They print $1 trillion every 100 days. We should all get EBT food stamp stuff, bro. No, we shouldn't. Like, absolutely. That's the problem with it is it doesn't matter about the money. You can put out as much money. You can give benefits of any size to any degree into the future you want. $1 trillion tickets to every single person in the United States. The problem with it is if you do not produce the real assets, then the purchasing power of that benefit will not provide you with anything. It doesn't matter. Go ahead and give $1 trillion, a bazillion quadrillion dollars to everybody. It doesn't matter if you do not produce the real assets. That's the important part to understand. Like here in the United States, we can give the benefit to every single person. We can give as much benefits as we want to any degree, to any length into the future you want. But if you're not producing the real assets here, it doesn't mean anything. It won't do anything. All right. Smart people might get themselves out of debt. That's it. That's the only thing that might be the only benefit. Other than that, it'll be total pain and misery and suffering for everybody out there because it won't provide them with anything. It don't matter. It was like, I got a wheelbarrow full of money, and it was just like, it doesn't matter. We don't produce real assets to buy anything with it. Got him on the TV where I can't comment. Vote no on all these bonds. Dang, people produce less than more they receive. Simple case of the more you make, the less you do. Somehow people always vote yes on more taxes. Lumberjack is live too, Hyder. You need a split screen for YouTube. Oh, that's right. It's Thursday. I forgot what day it was. I try not to go live on Thursday evenings because of that. Like, I don't want to cross over Lumberjack Landlord's, show because he's scheduled for every Thursday, and I just kind of pop on whenever I want. So I don't take offense if you guys want to run over and hang out with Lumberjack Landlord for a while. All right. Standard nursery UBI would only benefit anyone who was already in a position to provide goods and services to others. And I kind of agree with that. Like, the UBI will just basically keep you from falling behind, but it's not going to give you any kind of benefit to move forward. Like, that's the only thing I see UBI really offering. Now, the people, like you were saying, who are positioned well to receive that UBI and then take that UBI and benefit themselves by moving into cash flowing assets or something of that nature, like getting out of debt, whatever, even just saving it. Those are the people who are going to do quite well with it. But most people won't take advantage of it in that fashion. They will literally just kind of up their standard of living or just prevent their standard of living from falling any further. And that's what it'll do. And that's it. I loved being on food stamps. Really? I want back on food stamps. There are no stamps. We had pizza parties. All right. The Marxist theory, socialism is the stage that follows the overthrow of capitalism, characterized by common or state ownership of the means of production. Will they bring back community work programs like they did in the Depression? No. Why should some other lazy person get food and I don't? I'm just as lazy as the next guy. No surprise there. I guess I'm thinking if you weren't pursuing excellence before, UBI wouldn't help you anyway. No, that's true. Like, if you weren't in the mindset to do something with an increase in money, like if you weren't pursuing that for yourself and then all of a sudden it was handed to you, then you wouldn't know what to do with it. Like, most people who are pursuing more know why they're doing it. Like, they're in debt and they have to pursue more to get out of debt, or they want something more in their life, so they try harder to get more. But most people will generally only work as hard as they need to. In fact, Cantillon goes in and describes that. Let me see if I can find that here for you guys. Actually, this is a better one to go to. Let me get into my computer here. Cantillon actually describes that very scenario. I try to go to this thing and I always end up like not being able to find it. Hold on one second here, guys. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah. Okay. When the abundant money raises products to honest prices, the inhabitants eagerly, this is Cantillon, the inhabitants eagerly work to acquire them, although they do not show the same eagerness to acquire food and merchandise beyond what is needed for their maintenance. Now, this is something that was described hundreds of years ago. You think about it, how many people still do that today? They only work as hard as they need to. They don't put any more effort in beyond that of their maintenance. Oh man, I got this tiny little apartment and the shitty little car and I don't have anything else going on and I just work a 9-to-5 job and that's all they do. They're not going to do any more than that because they are able to maintain their existence on that. They are not going to put any more effort than beyond that. That's the majority of the people. Now, there are some people who do put in more effort than that, right? And Cantillon goes in and talks about those people as well. Let me see if I can find it here. I'm not sure exactly where it is in here. Hold on 1 second. Let me see it. So there's people out there who will wait, right? And see, this is what's going to end up happening if you give UBI out there. Some people are going to maintain their life, and that's it. That's as far as they're going to go. And then other people are going to be industrious. They're going to look at that extra money, right? The money beyond the money they already have, and they're going to use that money to advance themselves. Industrious people who are eager to acquire property will not at first increase their expenditures. They will wait until they have accumulated a large sum from which that they can draw a secure interest a secure interest income independent of their occupation. All right? Dividend paying stocks, rental properties, businesses, some sort of secured interest beyond that of their occupation. Those are the people who are going to be on the other side of the wedge. Other people are like, no, my life would be so much better if I just had UBI. You wouldn't believe it. I would be able to pay my bills and sit around and watch football and drink beer and everything would be cool. Those are the people who are only working as hard as they need to maintain their existence. These are the two different mindsets. Cantillon described it from hundreds of years ago. To think that it doesn't exist today is very naive. It still very much exists today, and this is how it occurs. Being able to recognize it. That's the key to it. It is to be able to say, yes, I see it happening here. I recognize that in other people. They don't work any harder than they need to. They say, I work 40 hours a week. Any more than that is a crime. I shouldn't have to, and I'm not going to. Screw them. Right? When really, in reality, what they are saying is screw me, because now I'm not going to be able to get on the other side of the wedge because I've already committed myself to not being there. That's what that says. All right. I have made decisions to make less on paper to pay less in healthcare. That's a bad system. I just did what I had to do to not have a house payment by 55. Beat my date by 10 years. Wow. How do you guys stay eager to acquire property? How do you keep the mindset? Yeah. And here's the thing. Like, for me, I don't really think about any plan like that has to happen. What I think of is what it is that I want in my life, like how it is that I would feel if I was to have a particular thing in my life. If I was to be a landlord, if I was to be a property, like, have my own house, like if you want to be a homeowner, if I was to have the YouTube channel, like I think of these things, I imagine what it would be like to already have that in my life and what the feelings would be like if I already had it. Okay? Because I think a lot of times when people think, oh man, what would it be like to have 150,000 YouTube or 150,000 subscriber YouTube channel? And they have this idea of it being some sort of like, Hollywood celebrity status experience or something like that. Like, I don't know what people think out there for it. I know for me, when I thought about having a 150,000 subscriber YouTube channel, this is about what I thought it was going to be like. Now, granted, I thought like, the idea of getting there seemed seems almost like rock starish or super, like, athletic superstar kind of thing, like in my mind, that's kind of like, a little bit of like the pedestal that I had put it, getting to there. But on the path to it, I didn't give it that kind of importance. Like in my head, I kind of like back in the day, I had that. But as things were moving along and the subscriber count was kicking up and the network was getting built and I was meeting all these people, I didn't put it on that pedestal anymore. I didn't have it like, hey man, there's this rock star pedestal that you're eventually going to achieve. I didn't even think about it like that anymore. In fact, by the time I had 5,000 subscribers, that feeling of having the YouTube channel, that really popular to YouTube channel, 150,000 YouTube, subscriber YouTube channel, by the time I was at 5,000, the feeling was locked in. Like I don't feel any different now than I did at 5,000 when it comes to the channel. So what ends up happening is that if you can put it in your imagination like that and you get the feeling, the universe lines up. Everything just starts lining up to meet what it is that your imagination and your feelings are carrying. But if you feel deep down inside the lacking or the distance or waiting, like if this is some of the energies that you're carrying about the things that you want in your life, then that's what you're going to experience. Just out of reach, always in the distance, always fleeting, right? Because that's what you're carrying. If you carry, no, it's already here. Like it's already there. It's already exist. I mean, everything is already there constantly anyway. So it's not like it's not there. It's just a matter of being in the energy that has it flowing towards you. That is a very difficult thing for most people to wrap their head around. It's like almost like a paradoxical event that says, hey, I want this thing, and in order to get it, I have to let it go. I have to not want it. And it was like, that's exactly right. But it's not necessarily that. You can still want it. What you have to have is the imagination in which that you have already acquired it or that it's already there. It's just lining up for you. See, this is the thing. Like people say, man, what's your goal for your income or money or something like that? I don't have a dollar amount. Like I don't have a number in the bank in which that is like, I got this $2 million number in the bank. I don't have that. To me, it's already there. Like all the money is already there. I can pay my bills on time. I can buy the gallon of milk. I can get the toilet paper, right? Like the money is already there. Like I don't know what that number is needing to be, but that number that's in the bank is enough to provide me with the ability to pay my bills on time and get the things that I need in my life. I don't know what that number is supposed to be because what it's doing is exactly what I was hoping it would be. So as people are like, man, well, you don't have this particular number, and I'm like, yeah, you're right, I don't, but I never thought about having that number either. That's the difference inside of it. By having that kind of attitude and feelings towards it, I don't stress about money. I really don't. There was a time that's the only thing I stressed about was money all the time. Like, how do I pay this bill? What am I going to do when the next one comes in? What do I do in a crisis situation? What do I do without this money? And now, like, that part of it doesn't exist in my mindset anymore. It just really doesn't. So, and it took a lot for me to do that. And at the same time, it's weird because I also carry, I'm not going to have enough for milk. Isn't that weird? Talk about him. That's how it gets screwed up. That's what ends up being. That's the mental deterioration that takes place from being poor for so long, right? Is that you don't even see it. How like the feeling that you carry, like man, I don't know, like it's a struggle to keep milk in the fridge, right? But it's not. But yet the feeling that it is there. Like how would I get that done? Knowing that it's not a feeling that you have to worry about. All right, what time is it? How late are we going to go? You just want to go for an hour tonight, guys? If you want to go longer than an hour, we got 81 thumbs up. Get it up over 100 in the next 6-7 minutes here, and we'll keep going. Otherwise, we'll call it quits. All right, Yui is on a roll tonight. Well, thank you, Standard Nursery, man. I really appreciate you guys being here, too. All right, live with less and be happy with what you got. Stay out of McDonald's and raise a garden. Yeah, I don't even really like McDonald's anymore. Like the last time I had it, it didn't even taste good. It made me feel horrible and it was expensive. Like I don't understand like anybody would even want to go to McDonald's. It's kind of funny because like the nostalgia that from being a kid, like I remember being a teenager and it was fun to go hang out with the friends and go to McDonald's and whatever. But now, like I look at it and I taste like the burger and I get that quick memory and I think, man, that's cool. And then the rest of the experience is terrible. You know? uh Guys, like it up. Yes, please do. Thank you so much. Why can't our politicians wear jerseys? That's all I want to know. I just want to know where their money comes from. Yeah, no, you'll never know that. Post traumatic poor syndrome, PTPS, yeah. All right. For the price of two cheeseburger meals, I could eat for a week with my own cooking. Yeah, and that's really like, that's a lot to it. Being able to like cook your own meals, preparing your own meals, and it's not even just a matter of like preparing your own meals at home. It's looking at the food that you do buy, how it is that you're buying that particular food, packaged food as opposed to bulk food that you could cut up and package yourself. I mean, there's a lot of ways that, people could save a lot of money at the grocery store once they kind of learn the process of being able to do it in a way that says there's money to be saved. Like, just cutting up your own meat, like buying a bigger chunk of meat and then cutting it into the steaks or whatever it is you need is so much cheaper than trying to buy the steak individually. Buying bulk of vegetables and being able to can them is a hell of a cheap way to go about processing food that you can store for later. These are things that most people don't really generally think about, right? Especially if you weren't raised that way, then it's really difficult to try and figure out how to live that way. It's almost like this esoteric art or something, that people go through when it comes to trying to learn how to eat properly or, cook up fresh foods. Uh, uh, 4 burgers worth of ground beef was $14 today. Huh. I hope all are doing well tonight. High Metal. Well, thank you very much, High Metal, for being here. Standard nursery, potatoes alone. Deplorable. If you ask the world for $1, it would give you $1. If you would have known that all I had to do was ask for more, and I would have been granted. Well, deplorable, that's actually not too far off from the truth of it. But you have to also feel worthy, useful, and be that way for that flow to come back to you. Like you're not too far off from it. If you just ask for it, it shall come. It'll come. But you also have to believe it and you also have to be helpful and useful. So, I need to go and check out some super chats here, don't I? Oh, where's that super chat? I'm missing it here. Where is it? There it is. Infamous NYC, thank you so much for the $20. Average taxpayer works 43 years and averages 14K a year in taxes. If that was invested into the market, it would be 11 million and 300K in annual income if placed in a treasury. But the average Social Security benefit is about $967 robbery. Yeah, I totally agree. Infamous NYC, I totally agree. I am not a fan of taxes. I'm not a fan of Social Security. I'm not a fan of the government in general, and I haven't been for a very long time. But the fact is that it does exist, and because it does exist out there, I don't really have a problem with paying it. Like, to me, it's the old people tax. Like, what else are these people going to do? I mean, they need some sort of subsidy, they need some sort of benefit, they need subsidy, they need something, right? And like, I mean, I don't know what else to offer them, but this is the system in which that they can be provided for at least something. And so it's just like, all right, fine, whatever. It's the old people tax, and maybe someday somebody will be paying it for me. It's just the unfortunateness of it, but I don't get mad about it. It's just the way it is, But there is a truth about that, right? Like, if we were able to keep the money in taxes that we pay out there and put it into an investment, then we would be so much well better off than most people end up experiencing by the end of their life. That's not the way it goes down. That's not the way it works. We have to do that individually for ourselves. And the truth of the matter is that if everybody did that, then it wouldn't work. Right? Because if everybody did that, we would all be in the same boat. It would essentially be a net wash, and all that money wouldn't buy anything if we're not producing the real assets here anyway. So the fact that only a few of us will do it and acquire that money and, have the $11 million or whatever, excuse me, the fact that only a few of us do it means that it'll work for us. If nobody else does it, then it works for us. If everybody else did it, then it wouldn't work for us. It would be just the same as everybody else, and essentially it would be a wash and wouldn't work. So be thankful that people are lazy and don't do it. I mean, that's your competition. So as people say, oh man, they're just a bunch of lazy jerks who don't work and don't want to and just collect and all that other stuff, that's your competition. Think about it. The more people do that, the less competition you have. And I mean, I know that's kind of a weird, messed up way of looking at it, but it's the truth of it. As long as they're being lazy asses and don't want to put themselves in a position to get a return on their capital investments, they don't want to start businesses, they don't want to do any of that stuff, and they're hoping and wishing and dreaming that a politician is going to come in to save the day. That's your competition. That's who you're competing against. So it's not that hard. Right? I mean, look at it. I mean, just look at that. All right, we explained the life cycles of reserve currencies. Well, the thing is like you're probably talking about the world reserve currency of the United States in the position that it holds today. There's nothing ever like this in history. So to talk about the cycles of it, you can't. There is nothing that has ever come even remotely close to what it is that the United States is doing right now. So when it comes to like most of the time that you are going to experience the power that most nations have acquired throughout history has come from their ability to perform commerce, manufacture and distribute. They don't have to be the greatest manufacturer. They don't have to be the greatest distributor. But if they have the ability to distribute better than anybody, or they have the ability to manufacture better than anybody, they have an advantage. If you can manufacture and distribute, you are the superpower. That's it. That's all there is going to be. You produce it better and you can ship it better. That's the superpower that most nations would acquire. By being in that position, you would acquire the world's money. You would be the one in charge. Right? He who has the gold rules. And so now this is how most nations would rise and fall. They would be very industrious, whether it was through manufacturing or distribution or the combination of both, or even better yet, war effort. War effort. However, all of it eventually comes to an end. And whoever it is that's most industrious after that will be the next one to rise to power. Here, the United States had done something back in the 70s, actually earlier than that, but really ultimately down in the 70s, is that we severed ourselves from the gold standard when it was time to redistribute the wealth back out there to the rest of the world. This is what the Cantillon effect would have described and shown to be the case if it wasn't for the fact that Nixon says, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go on a 100% fiat currency, and the world is going to have to accept it. They didn't have to accept it. They chose to. Just like every single day, we choose to accept fiat currency with our paychecks, with the willingness to pay taxes, to go out there and make purchases every day, to invest with it, to write contracts and promise to pay into the future with it. We are willing and volunteering to use fiat currency, very much like back in Nixon's day or back in 1913 when the Federal Reserve was established. Most people will not feel that way. They will feel forced. They were not forced. You are not forced today. You volunteer. You choose to use it. Don't think that you don't. So now, understanding that it is a voluntary thing, that we choose to use it, that we don't have to use it, that there is other currencies out there that can be used. However, the abundance of the dollar is second to none. There is nothing else even remotely comes close to the amount of dollar transactions that are being performed out there. The only way that dollar transactions can be performed out there like they do is the fact that there's an abundance of dollars to do it. Without the abundance of dollars to perform the transactions, they would not be happening. So as many people say, oh, well, there's other nations out there who can use their currency. No, they can't. There ain't enough of their currency to do the transactions that the dollar is doing. You could, even if you wanted to, and say, hey, we are not going to use dollars. We are only going to use sovereign currencies of other nations to perform transactions. Everybody would immediately start starving and dying. There is not enough of that currency to perform the transactions needed. Only the dollar has enough. The only reason why they have enough is because the United States is willing to go into debt as deep enough as they are. No other nation can do it. Not even the United States can't do it. They are doing it, but they really can't. It's going to come to an end at some point. No other nation is going to step up and say, hey, you know what? You all don't like the dollar and you all don't like the United States. I tell you what, how about you trust us to go deep into debt as much as the United States has, and we promise we'll pay you back. Like, do you trust any other nation to do that? Of course not. Take your entire retirement and hand it over to the Chinese government bonds. Are you going to do that? You're going to go buy Indian debt? You're going to go buy the debt of Brazil? Put your entire retirement in the rock solid, investment of South Africa? Does that sound reasonable to you? Or are you going to hold on to U.S. Treasury debt, the most widest, deepest liquid market in the entire globe? Or are you going to go to something that has very small amount of liquidity to it, like a South African bond? Nothing comes close. The dollar is it. Anybody who looks at it any differently than that has a delusional mindset. They have this wishful, hopeful belief that all of a sudden there's going to be some kind of magical experience that takes place where all these transactions can happen, even though there's no currency to perform the transaction with. I love how people say, oh, well, Bitcoin can do it or gold can do it. No, it can't. No, it can't. You know why? Because there ain't enough of it. There ain't enough of it to perform the transactions. You take gold to 100,000. You know how little tiny, itty bitty tiny piece of gold that you would need in order to be able to provide the commerce that is needed? It would be this small, insignificant amount. So you put it into digital currency form. And you can say, no, we can do it in these digital forms. And you say, oh, great, man. Here's all the ability to do all these micro little transactions, and you can use it in gold using these digital currencies. And the moment that you buy foreign production, your gold leaves the country. Bam, 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 until it's all gone. So you don't buy any foreign production at all, and you sit here in the United States with no manufacturers to have an elevated standard of living. Everybody here suffers in poverty and misery. It's the unfortunate circumstances we now face. All right. You got money, UE, waiting for you. Thank you, Infamous NYC. I appreciate your constant support and contributions to the channel, man. Like, I don't even know how many super chats you have sent the channel, but I really appreciate it, man. And you're here regularly, all the time. Thank you, guys. All right, man, I just went on, didn't I? Well, we got 98 thumbs up. You guys want to stick around for a little longer? All right. Simon is too small-minded to see that there is unlimited gold in the Grand Canyon. No, don't give me that stuff. You know, Bix Weir talked about that stuff all the time. You can go ahead and mine all that gold out of there. It doesn't matter. Gresham's law is still going to kick in. If you have good currency versus bad currency, then the good currency is going to get hoarded away every single time so long as there's a bad currency in the system. You flood the entire world with 5 times as much gold, it doesn't really matter. The same thing is always going to take place, and that is the most industrious people are going to rise, concentrate the wealth, deny the rest of the people out there the ability to do transactions, and then there's a redistribution of that wealth back out there again. Again, whether you have all the gold that we have now, 5 times as much gold, it doesn't really matter. The same results are going to be taking place every time. It's to understand the underlying economic forces. Those who don't look at the underlying economic forces will then call people small-minded and be very ignorant to the fact that it's happening. That's what's going to occur. Right? Okay, my plan is simple for the next month. I'm saving up, paying off debt, writing gold spot every other week. Forget the gold. We print our own money. Just give it to us and we will buy the foreigners' goods. That's what's going to happen, deplorable. That's where the UBI is, right? They're going to produce a consumer, and that's essentially how they're going to do it, is by handing money over to us. What else are you going to do with it other than spend it? Once you spend it, where does it go? It goes right to the top, and it goes over to foreign hands. That's it. That's the only. Like, if you don't have it, who does? Like, if you don't have it, who does? The rich and the foreigners. That's where it goes. All right. Infamous NYC. It'll be generation of love. We'll all be hippies. Free love, free sex. I don't know. Sounds fun. Okay. I agree, Simon. We have to go take care of the foreigners' liquidity crisis for dollars. If we print the money and give it to the United States citizen and tell them they have to buy foreign products. Well, they won't even have to tell them to buy it. You just have to give it to them and they'll just automatically just do it. Like, if you just, like, you don't have to say anything. Like, you don't have to put a single word out there at all for any reason whatsoever. All you have to do is just let the checks fly. All of a sudden, people are opening up the mailbox, they're opening up their bank accounts, and they have money that was delivered to them from the Treasury Department. That's it. The people will take care of the work themselves. They will spend it on foreign production almost immediately. A handful of them might pay off debt, and a few of them will deploy that into some sort of return on capital investments. All right, hands off my sex robot hippie. Ew. All right, going to listen to Aerosmith, Living on the Edge. Yeah, and I thought a Woomba would be making me money. It's a robot. If you want truth, follow Bix Weir. I like Bix Weir. There was a chance I was almost gonna get to meet him on an economic conference, but I didn't get it. It didn't work out. Love the Road to Ruta theory. I mean, I thought it was a great theory that he had come up with. You know, I mean, I guess we all have our own theories. Bix Weir's a cool guy, but you know, as far as like, you know, the idea that, you know, you're going to be able to all of a sudden just flood the United States with all this gold and it's going to somehow just make us rich as hell, and everybody's going to be like, you know, just singing the praises of, like, you know, the awesomeness of it. And I think to myself, we don't produce goods and services here in a way that is going to be any kind of real benefit to anybody here. All that gold even if we were to pull it out of the Grand Canyon, if we are not producing real assets here in the United States, we will send the gold out there to the foreign producers and we will be broke. The Grand Canyon doesn't benefit us any. In fact, it's better that we keep it locked up while we're going through our little era of decadence, so that once we go and become poor again, we can then go mine that gold out there and have some sort of real asset that we can use to then rebuild ourselves with. But if we dig it out of the ground now, we are going to send it over to foreign productions to purchase luxurious experiences, and we all suffer in pain and misery on account of it. What is this? Atticus Now. That's why some governments force citizens to save by issuing mandatory pension requirements from employers, lower wages, but at least the employee saves the money for later. Cruise down here. Infamous NYC. Tons of resources and small populations. Also, they are well managed. UE, how do you feel about the Federal Reserve's lending like banks do instead of hold reserves? The Federal Reserve lending like banks do instead of hold reserves. I mean, I don't know what creative financing. Like, I mean, I don't know what difference. The Federal Reserve, like literally, if you think about it, if you did not have a gold mine, silver mine, or something that is going to be injecting new money into the system, then you have to have financing injecting new money into the system. The creative financing of the Federal Reserve is like the ability to keep mining even though the mine has been tapped out. Right? Like that's where the creative financing of the Federal Reserve is. When the mine gets tapped out and you're like, okay, hey, we got no more money. We didn't win the war. We can't manufacture anymore. The money is churning off. We are going to fall into pain and misery. It's the central banking system that steps up and says, hey, creative financing keeps the new money pouring in. As if there was a mine, as if there was manufacturing, as if there was a war, right? Bringing in new money. Instead, it's being done through creative financing. So to understand, like, there's nothing that can happen within that is going to make the system better. If you have ever increasing amounts of new money coming in, you're going to have that separation taking place. Think about it. If it was new money coming in because we were becoming very industrious, then the separation doesn't happen that quickly. It happens very slowly. As the people who are getting that first new money coming in, they're raising their standard of living. It's the people at the end of the line who are suffering the most. But then as the new money is pouring in, and it's really only coming in at the top, they're the only ones who really have access to it. And a little bit trickles in. There's not enough coming in that gives us any kind of real ability to then go out there and raise our standard of living. We have to work ever increasingly harder in order to get that little trickling that's coming in. You know, where before we could produce and then send that stuff out there to the world. Oh, wow. Really lizard interesting. All right, just so you guys know, you can make it happen at 40 as well. It's never too late. Why does Israel have the health care, but we don't? Don't we give them like billions of dollars? I think a lot of people are still misunderstanding that you have to be able to produce the real assets here. If there was an abundance of medical personnel and hospitals and facilities and devices and drugs and all the other stuff there, then it wouldn't be that expensive. But because there is a limited amount of real assets, all that healthcare stuff only the people who have the money are going to have access to it. Right? But if you have an abundance of it, it didn't really matter if you have money or not. The ability to have it, it would be very available. Right? So again, it's a matter of having the real assets. The money doesn't matter. The money part of it is actually very inconsequential. The money of it, the money is an energy just like anything else. It doesn't have any kind of significance or importance other than the meaning that you have given it. And this is really what's strange for a lot of people. That's why I don't even think about like the money in the bank or anything like that. Like that's not part of it. It's a matter of understanding that you have to be able to produce real goods and services, real assets. That's it, right? Now, the ability to then use a currency to transact those things around. That's where a lot of people say, well, yeah, if we had plenty of currency, then we would be able to transact. But you don't think about having the real assets. The real assets have to exist. If they don't exist, it doesn't matter how much money you have. All the creative financing in the world cannot produce real assets. That has to be done through the industriousness of the people themselves. So fill this van up or fill this Suburban up with, $100 billion. But if it's only going to buy this set of dice, how much is this set of dice going to be worth? A lot of money. All right? And that's the problem. If this is the real asset and this is the money to buy it, then it's not going to be able to buy very much, is it? Because there's only this much assets. All right, services don't make money, just shift it around, burger flipping. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think services don't make money unless you're like, producing something from it. Like, I mean, I guess in a sense, like, if you are, I don't know, I'm trying to come up with like an analogy or something like that on how this would work, right? All right, let's kind of do it on a silly level here like this. Let's take a professional athlete who makes a lot of money from being a professional athlete and performing physically, right? But then they screw up, pull a muscle in a leg. Now you have a physical therapist there who performs the service of massaging that cramp out of the leg or whatever it is that's going on. Right? By performing that service, now the athlete can go back out there and continue to make the money being an athlete. Right? Now, I know that's kind of a weird way of looking about it, but if you can provide a service that then gives the efficiency into the economy that then, provides more money, then yeah, you can have a service that does actually perform in a way that makes it efficient and therefore profitable, can make money. But ultimately, you have to provide a good and service, right? The athlete itself is really getting paid for the entertainment value of it, doesn't actually produce anything themselves. And so again, all that has to come from somebody who is producing. Like even the athlete themselves would have to be paid from somebody who is producing something real, because the athlete is essentially getting paid for entertainment value. And then the person who is the physical therapist is getting paid to make sure that the athlete is continuing to be entertaining. And then that person, that entertainment value, then is drawing from the real assets that somebody is producing. So I guess you're right. Actually, services don't produce anything. All right. Trading time for currency. Some provide a skill, some provide motion. Bond market is the largest valued market out there. If money isn't enough, if the money isn't enough, do it for the emperor. Looks around. Warhammer 40K, anyone? Providing entertainment is an asset. They make people move out of their seats and spend money. Mike, I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong, man. I mean, as an entertainer myself, like, I mean, I like to think that I'm somewhat entertaining. I try to provide some sort of entertainment on Sunday nights, calling the bingo game. Being up on stage and have done performances like live performances in theater and stuff like that. I mean, I love that feeling of being in a position in which that I can take somebody's attention and give them some humor, give them some, even the feeling of sadness or an emotion, a feeling of a story that is being told, something that can take them away from their experience of life so that they can drift away for just a minute. That's what I love. I love that. And, and being able to do that occasionally is one of the biggest rewards that I can ever imagine. Right? And it's so funny because it's something so simple. Like I'm not providing anything of any kind of like physical material thing that you can take with you and have forever. I'm giving you just a small experience of a memory that you can take with you. I don't I don't know, maybe it takes somebody who has been in there to really understand what it is that I'm trying to explain, but it's so rewarding to be able to have that ability in my life and to have the opportunity in my life to do that, you know. Thank you so much, Nick, for the $9.99, man. I really appreciate the super sticker. You guys are very supportive tonight of the channel. I really appreciate you guys. You are meant to be a main character, Simon. I don't care about what the other guys say. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It was a lot of fun. Like when I did that play, The Weir, it was the very first one, the very first production I was ever involved in. And I haven't done that many. And it was intense. It was a very deep, dark play. It took place in a little bar in the countryside of Ireland. And it was so, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, I fell into the character so much that I almost have like this memory of having been in Ireland working that little bar on that farm. Like it almost feels like I must have spent like a summer doing that because of how like into the character that I really had gotten myself into. It was so much fun. That play, The Weir, it was it was something else. Cuz it's a story of like four characters, four people. There's like the bartender. There's actually five. So there's the bartender. He's got like a good friend. He's an old buddy. Right? And then they got like another friend who's a little quirky, a little kind of a weird dude. And then there's this rich guy, right? And he's gonna bring the new girl, right? So this rich guy, he has like apartments or whatever, and this girl is gonna rent one of his apartments, and he's gonna bring her into the bar to introduce her to some of the locals, right? This is how the story begins. And so as the characters get introduced into the play and the play starts up, they start telling these really haunting stories, really dark, like scary kind of scenarios that are taking place. The other actors that I'm working with in this play are super professionals. Like, not only are they professional in the theater, knowing and experienced and all that other stuff, but they're professionals in life too. I mean, we're talking doctors, lawyers, not all of them, but a few of them, right? They they're professionals. And I'm working with these professional individuals and I'm thinking to myself, holy moly, man, am I not surrounding or being surrounded right now with some of the greatest in talent, some of the greatest in experience and value that I could get from sharing this with other people? And as I'm going through the rehearsals and trying to knock the lines out and, being as good at it as I possibly can, I'm watching one of the other actors. She's the actress. She's doing her monologue and she can cry. Like, I'm not just talking like, she can cry, like, oh, like act like she can cry. I'm talking like full on tears pouring out of her face as she's doing her monologue. And it was so incredible to be in that and watch that and to see how she was able to pull it off almost every single time in rehearsal, and then to see it full on during the play itself was one of the most incredible experiences that I got to witness. And it's so funny because for most people, it probably would have just been something so simple and just like, whatever, bro, and that's not a big deal. To me, it was incredible to see her pull that energy out as if she was really the mother talking about her dying daughter in a swimming pool was overwhelming. Like the way she told the story, the energy she carried within it, it pulled tears out of the audience. You could hear people crying. So awesome. Anyway, moving on. I keep thinking to myself, there is a thin line between where I am and where the zombies are. I kind of like Albuquerque, though I like the drive from Central and look at the zombies walking up and down the road. Not many can do that. No, Juan, you're right. I plan to have a good experience one of these days myself. It really, like, what is it that is not happening? Let me put these dice up here. Why are the dice hanging? I have to ask, like, because I even ask myself sometimes this very question, like, what is it that's taken place that you're not approving of, that you're just willing to accept into your life? Because isn't that what's blocking your joy? Is like you're really dealing with something that you don't want, feeling forced to deal with it. Maybe it's, the job that you're working at, the location that you live in, the relationship that you happen to be in. Maybe it's something of those things. And you think to yourself, man, I don't have any other choice. I'm forced to deal with this. Maybe someday this will change and my life will be better. Right? So maybe you just need to ask yourself, what is it that's going on in your life that you're accepting that you don't want? Right? Are you performing to meet the expectations of other people? Because if you're doing that, then probably not going to be very joyful in life. Right? If you're doing your thing to meet some, like, if I don't do this, and those people are going to be mad at me. Those people are going to be like, oh, shame on you. So if that's the case, then yeah, I would believe that you probably don't have a lot of joy in your life. See, that's the difference inside of it. People who are doing it for themselves are not going to be saying that question, I can't find joy in my life. Because you're doing it for yourself, it's going to be joyful. It doesn't matter what it is, you're doing it for you. But if you're doing it for somebody else and you're not getting the experiences in your life that you were hoping for because you're performing all these tasks for somebody else, yeah, that's going to be miserable. You're not going to be very joyful at all. So sometimes it's not a matter of changing anything that you're doing. Like literally nothing. Like you show up to the same job, you live in the same house, you drive the same car, you eat the same food. There's nothing changes about anything other than the meaning that you give it. I'm not doing this for other people anymore. I'm doing it for myself. And really, I don't care what other people are going to say anymore. If they say shame on you, too bad. All right? That's the way they are interpreting it. That doesn't have anything to do with me anymore. I have my own thing to do. When you stop doing it for other people, then you're going to find that the joy really comes from your own achievements and rewards from the things that you want in your life. You're trying to do something to reward somebody else, you're going to be very miserable. It doesn't matter how good you are at it. Oh, thank you, all-nighter. Let me go find it. Oops, where is it? Chris Six Strings $2 super chat question was missed. Uh-oh. All right. Thank you, all-nighter. I'm going to have to go find it. Where's it at? Oh, there it is. Chris Six Strings, thank you so much. Yui, how is California the 4th largest economy in the world? Oh, man. Well, you have to think. Okay. Think about the awesomeness of California, right? Think about the awesomeness of it when it comes to just weather alone, right? Like, I mean, if you are in the Midwest and you want a nice sunny place to be in the middle of winter, where are you going to go? California, right? I mean, there's other places in the world, but California is going to be it. It's always sunny in California, especially Southern California. It's like, that's the theme, right? So there's always pouring of new money coming into California just for the simple fact that people go there all the time. But then it's freaking huge agriculture. California is massive, massive agricultural state. Lots of new money comes in from agriculture. Port cities, right? Talk about the port cities on California. It's like the whole West Coast. Massive new money pours in. Oil. Holy moly. Like, talk about an oil producing state. Like, everybody always focuses in on Texas. California, massive oil production. Hollywood. Whoa, right? Talk about massive new money coming in from Hollywood. So you put these new money concepts into California, think about how much they are actually doing out of there. Hollywood, tourism, agriculture, industries like oil, productions. California is massive. Right? All right. I forgot about the agriculture. Yeah, California is huge agriculture. Like, I mean, if you ever driven through California, it's just like there's parts of California. It's just nonstop. That's all it is. It's just nothing but farm field after farm field after farm field. And I mean, that's all you'll ever see. Has anyone seen the movie Sideways? I have a jar on top of my refrigerator. I like to put money in it. Uh-oh. Don't tell people where your money is. Not yet. I'll look for it, though. All-nighter. Thank you for being here, buddy. All right. I like I said, diverse economy. New Mexico has more sunny days. Oh, yeah. All right. Like the sands of the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. All right. My best friend owned an oil company. Kirk, don't be weird. Oh, gosh. All right, you guys have fun. Do you want to hang out for a little longer? We're an hour and, what is that, 38 minutes? Oh, my gosh. Time flies when we're out here. Time just absolutely flies by. 116 people who have hit the like button, $33.90 in super chats because you guys are always so amazing. Yes, everybody wants to stick around longer. Get Low is a favorite movie of mine. What about two guys traveling the vineyards of California? You should watch it, Simon. Yeah, those guys cool. All right. What do you think the Fed will do differently after stablecoins? Do differently after stablecoins. I'm not sure if the Fed will do anything differently. Like that's the whole point of the stable coins is that they don't have to do anything differently. They can continue to conduct their monetary policy the way they always have, and they'll be able to, inject that monetary policy right through the stable coin. So long as anything is being used, or as long as the dollar is backing the stable coin, anything that they do with monetary policy will transfer right into it. So outside of maybe negative interest rates, I'm not sure what it is that they would do that would be any differently. Negative interest rates or say cash injections like UBI, but even on that, they don't really need digital currencies to do anything like that. Like they do for like maybe the negative interest rates, but not for the UBI. My buddy owns 10 weed shops. Yeah, but weed shops, I don't know if that's really the profitable business. Like, I can imagine weed shops would be profitable. Like, I'm not saying all of them aren't profitable, but I would imagine like the majority of weed shops would be more profitable right when it's first legalized and that initial rush comes in. Because, like, here in Oregon, see, this is what's funny. I think Oregon is probably a great um, test case, right? Because Oregon weed was never illegal. I don't know how many people know that. All right. Oregon was one of the only places where marijuana possession was decriminalized. So it was a misdemeanor. You paid a $600, like if you had less than an ounce of weed on you, and this is from like the 70s. If you had less than an ounce of weed, you had it confiscated. They would take it from you, but then they gave you like a $600 ticket and you went on your way. Nobody got arrested. Nobody went to jail. None of that stuff happened. You literally paid a ticket and you moved on. It was a fine for marijuana possession. Now, if you were driving or distribution, trying to package it up or something like that, manufacturing, growing, then it was a whole different thing. But the simple possession charge was never a crime in Oregon, never once. So when it became legal, they voted in for possession, sales, manufacturing, all that other stuff. People lit up. They're like, "Oh man, we're gonna make all this money off of it." And I'm like, "What? Why? Why would you do that? The only reason why it had any value is because it was illegal. I mean, marijuana doesn't have any value here in Oregon. Everybody's smoking. It's like it's everywhere. The only reason why it had any value to it is because it was illegal. The moment that they made it legal, all of a sudden the value of it just fell out. It's like swimming in a sea of green around here. The price of weed is super cheap. It's like, I mean, I see the signs outside the shops. There's more weed shops than there is, liquor stores in Astoria. I go past the weed shops. They got like, $35 ounces. I remember paying $35 for a couple of grams, and now it's just like, there's this weed that is just absolutely everywhere. I can't see how anybody is making any kind of money off of it. The farmers are complaining all over the place about it. Really, the only money that is made in it is the processing. So if you process it into something else, then there's some money kind of involved in that. Or if you grow like the highest quality stuff. But other than that, there's no value in it anymore, right? And I knew that was going to be the case just because of the experiences of being here in Oregon. It's just like weed is not a big deal. People want it to be a big deal because it was such a big deal when it's illegal. But when it's not illegal anymore, there ain't no value in it. It's worthless. It's a worthless product to begin with. It doesn't have any value to it. I mean, outside of the idea of getting high, and then there's a little bit of medicinal properties to it. But when I say a little bit, in the overall grand scheme of the industry, that is a very small portion of it. All right. I mean, it's a powerful medicine, don't get me wrong. But the idea that it's being used for that purpose is is very insignificant. It's very small. Everybody does it for the same reason, and that is to get high, right? Which is worthless. All right. the California product you are using as we speak? The California product that are using as we speak. I don't know, the electricity? I don't know. Is that coming out? I mean, we got Bonneville, you know. All right. Love listening to the live streams while I'm working. Well, right on, TB. I appreciate you being here, man. MWriter777, is inflation the way they control wealth transfer so they direct where the money goes to, because to them money is infinite? It should be abundant to everyone, but they control it to suit their needs. I don't know. I mean, I guess one can look at it in that sense, but like, I don't think so. I don't think I I don't think they have a system developed like this so that the people themselves will suffer the consequences of inflation. What I honestly feel is happening is that they are trying to provide the ability to perform transactions. By providing the ability to do transactions, we have ever increasing amounts of new money pouring into the system. The consequence of that is inequality. Now, how is it that you allow for more transactions to take place and then not have the effects of inequality as a result of it? I don't know if that's possible. Either you expand the money supply, you expand the debt issuance, and you provide the ability for people to do transactions so that they're doing business, they're making money, they're sending their kids off to school, they're doing all the things. That has to come with ever increasing amounts of expansion. Well, when you do that, you'll have inequality as a result of it. So as people say, oh man, they're doing this on purpose and it's creating this inequality and they're doing this to create the pain and suffering, I don't necessarily look at it that way. Like, I understand that's the way people are going to want to receive it because they are suffering and pain and misery because of it. And then they say, hey man, it's their fault. They're doing this to me. And all that is very accurate in description. But the underlying economic force is saying that if you inject new money, which is what the people are begging for every time they say, hey man, I want to do business, I want to go to work, I want to be able to, provide for me and my family. Every time they say that, then there's an injection of new money and then the inequality happens. So you can't have it both ways. Either you're going to suffer in pain and misery and we reduce the inequality, or we try to keep the flow going so that people can do the transactions, continue to provide the ability to have food on their dinner plate. And by doing that, the inequality gets worse. Now, you can point the finger and say, hey, they're doing this and they're creating this problem, but ultimately, what is the alternative to that? Pain and suffering and misery for everybody. So, I understand that we as individuals might be able to navigate our way through that pain and misery and say, hey man, I can perform in that and I can do really well. The majority of the people will not. They will, whoa, holy moly. Whoa, that was a heck of a super chat. Thank you so much. Okay, I'll get to that in just a second. I kind of lost my train of thought here, but ultimately, the majority of the people won't go down that road, right? Well, I gotta go check this out. Man, who is that from? I can't even see through these glasses. Hold on. Okay. This is coming from Flat to Dude? What is that? Man, I can't read with these. Flatto Dude? Thank you so much for the $99.99, $100 super chat. Incredible, man. Thank you so much. I have learned a lot from you. I still am foolish, but your guidance has helped. Here's 100 for you. Holy moly, bro. Thank you so much, man. thank you for that support. You guys are awesome. Like, I can't tell you how much I really appreciate you doing this for me. My life has been so different with this YouTube channel. You know, there was a time in my life I didn't think that I would ever have anything going on. I never thought that I would ever be able to do anything that people would say, hey man, thank you. You've really helped. I never thought I would have something like this in my life. Thank you guys for doing this. Right? You know, especially for my family. You know, they get a decent experience now because of it. They weren't going to have that before. It wasn't going to be a decent experience. It wasn't going to be, you know, my boys having their own room. It wasn't going to be the ability to go to the museums. It wasn't going to be the basketball trips, the baseball. None of that stuff was going to be there like it is now. And having that is, again, guys, I know I say it all the time, but I can't thank you enough for that. Because I didn't think I was going to be able to do that for these kids. I didn't think I was going to be able to do that for my family. And when it's here and it's real and it's actually happening, man, you wouldn't believe how overwhelmingly appreciative I am of it. You know? So thank you so much. All right. All right. The real question, yeah. Wow, damn. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay. The real question is, how can you have a country if you let them all starve while you print the money and give it to your buddies? But see, that's just the thing, deplorable. When you say let them all starve, it's not. We, the people, need to be able to go out there and produce real assets. Like, we need to be able to produce food. They cannot possibly give us the currency to go buy food if we do not produce the food ourselves. See, that's the unfortunateness that we're in. They are going to be able to produce all the money in the world and keep it for themselves. But if we, the people, have access to all that money, we wouldn't be producing it for ourselves. We would have to be buying it from foreign production. If we are buying it from foreign production, the moment that the new money turns off, we all fall into pain and misery. This is an unfortunate situation we now face. There is nothing that will ever make the situation any better unless we start producing real assets. That's not going to happen. It's not. I would love for it to. I would love for there to be a situation in which it could. There are going to be plenty of people who try. There's going to be some that actually make it, but most of it's going to be malinvestment, and the majority of what it is that we consume is going to come from foreign production. Right. Chris Sixstrings, thank you so much for the $2. YouTube, Google are California products that you use daily. Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, but then again, that's also kind of like in the entertainment field, right? And that's something that I kind of address. I mean, I kind of called it more Hollywood, but really even like, you think about it, all the tech firms up in Silicon Valley and all the other stuff. I mean, that's massive new money that comes in just from coming up with good computer programs, I guess. I don't know. What do you think about a deliberate plan to crash everything to destroy the dollar and thus usher in central bank digital currency as a saving grace plan solution possible by design? No, I don't think so. I mean, why would you want to crash the system on purpose when, like, I mean, I wouldn't say like, okay. A lot of times, like, if you say crash the system on purpose, there's that, but there's also saying allowing the dead undergrowth to burn away. So like allowing the malinvestments to fade. That could be like somebody's interpretation of a crashing of the system. But that's really not a crashing of the system. That is really like Austrian economics at play, allowing the dead undergrowth, allowing the zombie corporations to fail. So to me, if you were to allow something like that to happen, which some people would be like, oh, dude, they did it on purpose, they crashed the system. But really, allowing that to take place is a good thing, because what can come from that is room to grow with viable companies. So to me, like allowing a crashing of the system is a good thing. It's like, clear out the bad debt, the bad companies, all the drag on the economy, and then allow something that is more efficient and profitable to come from that. So to me, like I look at it, and that is like a general economic cycle. If you have this expansion and then irrational exuberance and this move into the creation of malinvestment type companies, that needs to go away. And so, if you have to be like, man, we got to crash the system in order to kill off all these zombie companies, then okay, like call it a deliberate act. I don't know. But to me, it's going to happen one way or the other, whether you do it on purpose or if it just occurs. All right. Thanks again, Chris. Yeah, thank you all night for being here. Thank you, Brody, if you're still up in the chats. Let's see here. I am accelerating. Go team. Or accelerationist. Is that what you said? But it doesn't quite working like that anymore. The government bails them out today, and the small guys pound sand. Yeah, but like even still, like you saw a lot of zombie corporations failing during COVID. Like even just recently, like you think about all the layoffs that are happening and all that. That's the clearing out. That's the clearing out of like a lot of people look at it, it's just like, all these layoffs, that's horrible. These corporations want pain and suffering and misery. Yeah, that's true if you want to interpret it that way, but it's not really what's going on. This is the clearing out of the dead undergrowth. Zombie corporations are going to fail, right? People get laid off. This is all part of it. Now, what I find interesting is that typically when this would be happening, people would be calling a recession. But I don't believe that we are going to experience recessions like we once had. See, before, the recession was a way that the Federal Reserve could control inflation. If you allowed unemployment to fall dramatically, you would have inflation rise. If unemployment rise, you would have inflation fall. So this is how the Federal Reserve would conduct themselves. Well, now if you let unemployment fall and you have very low unemployment, the inflationary pressure doesn't occur from it. This is the flat Phillips curve. This is the problem that the Federal Reserve was facing. And this is an issue that they are trying to address on how is it that they find the inflation in the future if they cannot find it from the low unemployment. So now if you run historically low unemployment and it starts to rise a little bit, people get very concerned because of how long the low unemployment environment had existed. But really, ultimately, the rising of unemployment is a naturally occurring thing that would take place after a very hot economy had been occurring. Right? So like, once the economy heats up, then it has to slow down. This is where the unemployment starts to rise and the economy slows down, finds its bottom, and then starts to heat up and you get more hiring that starts to take place. So when the Federal Reserve used to target hiring and firing in order to conduct the inflationary pressures or disinflationary pressures, that is no longer the concept within the Federal Reserve. So that's why they say we're just going to run full employment from here on out. People will get really, oh man, the weakening labor market. And I look at the chart of unemployment and I'm like, what in the hell are people talking about? It's historically low unemployment. But the Federal Reserve conducts themselves in a way that says, hey, we're just going to let employment run hot all the time because it doesn't matter. It doesn't create an inflationary scenario. So this is the situation, right? If zombie corporations start to rise, then they need to let those zombie corporations fail. But if the zombie corporations start to fail and raises the unemployment significantly, then they have to lower the interest rates, which then causes the irrational exuberance. But look at what the situation is actually occurring within the economy. Zombie corporations are failing. Unemployment is rising, but it's not rising significantly. And that's the key to it. See, people are saying, man, how come it doesn't rise significantly? It's because there was a massive amounts of tight labor market, low unemployment. When people lost that zombie corporation job, that $100,000 a year job working at doing something that they probably had no qualifications to do anyway, and they lost that job, they went to work flipping burgers. Now, it may not be a good job, but it's a job. And if it's a job, you're not counting as unemployed. And that's the point. That's the reason why unemployment didn't rise significantly. So this is the way it's going to work now. If we have an expanded economy and the operations are moving up quickly, then you're probably going to find that unemployment falling back down to historically low averages again. But it doesn't create the inflation that the Federal Reserve would typically experience from that. So now the whole idea is just let employment just run full all the time. And whether or not they're making a bunch of money out of zombie corporations or they're flipping burgers doesn't really make any difference. That's what's scary and sad about it. There was a time when the $100,000 a year job would make a huge difference inside of the people, but for the majority of the people out there, they're never going to experience anything like that. What they're going to experience is that the job that they do have, even if it is $100,000 a year, will over time become less and less of a good job and become more and more of a paycheck to paycheck type of existence. All right, moving on. Thank you guys for being here. So awesome. All right, $5 from Chris Six Strings. Man, you're really hitting it up, man. UE, no disrespect, no problem, bud. But I think you are minimizing how much you have benefited from YouTube and Google. I'm minimizing it? Dude, it's completely changed my life. It made everything completely different. Like, I could have done the same thing without Google if I had a second job. If I had another full-time job, it would have been essentially the same experience. And now I don't have to necessarily work the YouTube thing like a full-time job, but there was a time that I did. Like the initial years of starting this channel took a lot of research. It took a lot of time making videos. Even though they were one-shot videos with no edit, I had to do them over and over and over again in order to deliver the information without saying and duh and and all those other things that were going with it. I had to do a lot of practice. I had to do a lot of research, and I had to put a lot of effort into it, and I wasn't getting paid the entire time. It took me years before I started getting paid. When it happened, it made a huge, huge difference in my life. Changed everything. Got me out of debt, got me a savings, it got me started into a retirement, it got me a house, right? It got me a lot of things. And to think that it wasn't the biggest, most profound thing that has ever changed my experience, that would be very incorrect. Google changed everything about it. And I'm not trying to minimize it by any means. Like, it is huge. It is a huge part of my life, But I also understand that not everybody's going to be able to do it with a YouTube channel. Again, I did this for a very long time as if it was a full-time job, and I didn't get paid. Not in the initial couple of years. It took a long time, So, no, I appreciate it. I don't feel like, a lot of people want to minimize, like, I don't know, maybe the content of the video or my efforts and the time that I put into it or whatever that goes in. Like, I know my value. I know the worth. I know what it is that I've done. And I know that going into the future, that this is what it is that I was really put on this planet to do. Like, I can never find, like, I enjoy doing construction and doing the carpentry, and I enjoyed a lot of stuff that I have ever done. But when it comes to talking about economics, sharing economic theories, trying to understand what it is that an individual can do with the information so that they can better themselves, that I find more of a driver in me than anything I've ever experienced. All right. Some people make it in YouTube in months, others take years. I just hope it's still here for other people. I think it will be. That's weird how my reply went to Flatto Dude. Yeah. Yeah, you guys are awesome and I appreciate it. And Simon, that is what drew me to you is you're genuinely trying to make a difference in people's understanding of what's truly happening. Well, and that's like, and I mean that's really the truth of it, because the more I try to help people understand what it is that's happening within the economy, I'm trying to understand it for myself. Like I started this channel to learn. I wanted to learn more about economics. I wanted to understand it better. That's why I started this channel, is to share what it is that I had found and understood with my friends and family, essentially, and an audience. As that started to grow, I started doing more research to do videos, to answer questions, to research comments that people had left, and it just kept expanding and expanding and expanding till we got to the point that we are now today. You know? All right. I once had thousands of views on Instagram. I wish I would kept it up. Maybe I would have success. I hope everybody gets the chance. These platforms will last forever. Yeah. Well, and see, that's what's amazing about it is that I remember like putting out videos in the early days and nobody watched them. That's what was really funny is that I put out all these videos and like literally nobody was watching my videos. You know, my wife, my mom, my sister, like, a few friends, they were watching them, but nobody really watched my videos. And then I remember like I had a video get like 100 views one day, and I'm like, whoa, that's more than just people I know, right? Like that's 100 people that watched my video. That is wild. And it was like I got like a dozen subscribers. I mean, who are these people? Who's subscribing to my channel? It's weird. Then one day I did a video talking about the housing industry and kind of incorporated building supplies into it. And that video took off and it got like 1,000 views. And I was just floored. I'm like, no way. 1,000 views? That's too much. I'm gonna delete my channel. I can't go with this much attention. This is too much. All right, I can't handle this. And I remember, like, telling my wife, I'm going to delete the channel. I said, I got 1,000 views on this damn video. I said, this is too much attention. I can't handle it. And she was like, what are you worried about? It's not like everybody doesn't already know who you are. And I'm like, oh, you're kind of right. I'm not like, I'm a popular dude in Astoria, but, I grew up in Astoria. And I mean, it's not that big of a town. So, I know a lot of people here. And I'm thinking, yeah, you're right. 1,000 views, I guess that ain't so big. That ain't such a bad deal. And it just kept growing after that, and it was like I kept getting more subscribers and I kept getting these views that would, like occasionally get up to 1,000. And, it was just like the channel just kept growing and just kept getting more popular. And I found people who were like, dude, keep going. We love these videos. You're doing awesome. Keep sticking to it. Don't give up, And I was just like, man, okay, yeah, I'll make a video. I'll do them as often as I can, and I try to get a video out every other day or whatever. And, pretty soon people are saying, "Hey, put your PayPal up there. I want to, I want to send you a tip." And I'm like, "You want to send me money? Really? That's weird." Okay, and so I put up a PayPal link, and people started sending me money, and they're like, "Dude, keep going, man. We really appreciate it. Here's some support." And this is all before like I ever had the monetization taking place, and I'm thinking, this is incredible. Holy moly, what a community of people. And so I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I saved all those PayPal tips, all of them, from all the like I was saving every one of them. I would very occasionally take the family out and go buy, Chinese food or take them out for ice cream or something. But for the most part, I just held on to all those, every one of them. And I thank God that I did, because when it came time to buying the house, I came up a few $1,000s short, and it was literally the PayPal tips that gave me just enough to get to the down payment for the house. Like, if it wasn't for all those PayPal donations that had happened in the earliest days before the channel was monetized, I wouldn't have been able to make the down payment. It's like literally you guys did it. You know? It's so bizarre to have, like, what an amazing change. So out of the blue, so odd of an experience to have. To think like, man, 40 years old, broke, nothing going on, no idea of what it is you're going to do. So now here it is, 49 years old, and I feel like the whole world is of opportunity is ahead of me. What an amazing difference. You know, to go from a mindset of believing the New World Order was coming after me, hardcore conspiracy theorist, thought for sure that, the dollar failure was all about ready to come around the corner. It was just a matter of moments before it occurs. Knowing that to be the fact, and now completely, drunk as hell. And they just abandoned all that. Said, nah, man, there's a better way out there. If there's other people out there who are killing it and making it, I can too. You know, I'm not going to let some outside force hold me down. I'm not going to let them keep me from rising up. They don't control me, and they're not going to stop me. I started taking on that sort of idea and thought, and the world really did change for me. All right. Man, I'm having a hard time seeing here. All right. As you got bigger, was there ever a point where you started to worry about your security, like people stalking or hacking you? Um, no, not really. I mean, I think, like, as far as like a stalker goes or something like that, like, I don't know what exactly that, like, I mean, like, we like, what is, like, what, I don't understand, like, what would you get from me? Like, I don't have anything. My material possessions are so insignificant. Like, you could pile everything I own into the Suburban, and you would probably, the truck itself would be worth more than everything I own. I mean, it's like, I don't, I'm not something that people like. I don't get it. I don't know what that would. I don't know why. Like, there's nothing there. I can understand if I was some famous rock star or something like that. Or some crazy actress that has a lot of attention from people out there. But we're people who look at the economy, right? Like, we're kind of nerdy people. We're not like, I mean, we're crazy in our own sense, but we're not that kind of crazy. We're a different kind of crazy. And so, no, I never did. And I don't, like I said, I don't really have, I, like, I don't, I don't know what exactly that would, what would you get from me? Like, I don't have anything. I don't know what that would, I don't know why. I don't know what that would, I don't know why. I don't have anything. I don't know what that would, what would you get from me? Like, I don't, like I said, I don't really have, I, like, I don't really have anything. It's just me. That's it. Like, there's nothing there. There's nothing, like, I don't understand. It's like, are you worried about, what am I worried about? Like, what could I possibly be worried about? I mean, I guess, in the sense somebody might get irritated by what I had said, and then they want to confront me about that. I mean, I guess that would be a small worry. But, for the most part, people are really appreciative of the channel, and when they approach me, they're very nice, and they want to shake my hand, and they tell me how much they like the channel and stuff like that. Like, I've never really had anybody come up and say, "Dude, I'm going to kick your ass for the things that you've said." Like, I've never experienced something like that. I've had people email me quite angered by some of the things, like I triggered the hell out of them with some of the things that I've said. But in that sense, I mean, those are kind of messed up people anyway. And, I just block them, and then I never hear from them again, and I don't stress it. I just go to bed and not worry about it. Here's the thing. He's probably watching right now, but I had a buddy who, like, I liked him, and I think he liked me because, like, we weren't intimidated. He definitely was not intimidated by anybody. And then I think he liked me because I didn't get intimidated by other people, like, I don't take threats very well. Like, I mean, somebody's threatened me, and it was just like, "Dude, that ain't gonna work." Like, you can't threaten me because I'm gonna call it. So something that I thought was really crazy is I watched him one day get really angry on the internet, and like he was mouthing off on Facebook or something like that, and he had these people really angered at him. And so, he's probably calling them names and doing all kinds of stuff, whatever. But at one point, they said, "Oh, we're going to get this guy. We're going to track down, we're searching his IP address, we're going to find out where he lives," and they said all this other stuff, and we're going to get him. We're going to go after him, right? I kid you not. He reads those messages, sees that, pulls out his wallet, throws his ID down, snaps a picture of it, and posts a picture of his driver's license. He says, "There, you guys don't have to do any more work. I'll come on over and see me." Right? Like, literally, they're saying, "Oh, we're going to track this guy down. We're going to figure out who he is." And he posts a picture of his driver's license. Right? And then went to bed. That is somebody who is not intimidated whatsoever. He is not scared by anybody. He is not scared of what it is that they are going to do. And he is not scared about somebody showing up. I hung around with that guy for quite a while. I learned a lot from him. Right? Some things to do and things not to do. I learned a lot. But watching his, like, demeanor when it came to somebody who had threatened him, he was just like, "You guys are just a bunch of just wussies," right? Throws down and says, "Come on over. You don't need to keep working. You don't need to threaten. Here, let me give you exactly all the information you need. Show up." Nobody shows up, right? I remember he had a phone call from somebody who said, "Oh, we've already called the cops and they're looking for you now," right? They said that to him. He hung up the phone. He drove down to the county sheriff's department. He goes down there. They're like, "What's up, bro?" And he was like, "Yeah, I hear you're looking for me." And they're like, "Nobody's looking for you." And he was like, "Yeah, that's what I thought." And he went home. Like, he showed up at the cop shop saying, "Hey, I hear you guys are looking for me. Is that right?" "No, man, go home. Nobody's looking for you." Yeah, he doesn't take it well. And so when I watched him operate in that fashion, and like I thought to myself, it's like I was like amused by the whole thing, and I was just like, "What? These guys say they're sending the cops after you? They do realize the cops would just show up, right? I mean, you can't threaten like the cops are coming after you. They're gonna find you real soon." And I was just like, "Don't you think they know how to find them? Like they could just go to his house." And so I laughed about these things when I see these people and the way that they act in the way that they behave, and that most of them are just completely idle threats. They have no intentions on doing anything. And they really, really, when it comes down to it, they're scared of other people. That's why they use those sort of threats. It's because they are actually intimidated by other people out there. See, I'm just not. I'm really not. You know, it was just like the New World Order is going to come after you. You're going to own nothing and be happy. I'm like, whatever. You know, it was just like, they're going to take all your guns away. They're going to come after you, you know, and do all that. It was just like, okay, well, I'm going to lock the door and then I'm going to go inside and I'm going to go watch TV. All right. And if there's a problem, you don't knock on the door. You got a warrant. You just kick the door in. You don't ask me for permission, because I'm not going to give it to you. All right? That's the difference inside of it. Most people, oh, they're going to come and take it from you. No, they're not. I have a constitution and I have rights, and it far exceeds any of their government authority. Now, I can't stop a human from being a human, right? And I can't, you know, if they get pissed off enough, they might hurt you. But ultimately, when it comes to constitutional rights, I don't trust the government. And they don't give me rights. I tell them what my rights are. That's the way this works. People who believe it otherwise, they don't have rights, and they're exactly right. They are very, very correct. Because they don't believe it, they don't have it, they don't get it, they don't deserve it. All right. How do you feel about the fact that usury debt destroys culture and the hypocrisy of religions and cultures that claim it is sin yet participate wholeheartedly? I like the guy you described. Yeah, Jason, you would like him. Like, he's a good dude. I mean, not everybody would say that, but I know he's a good dude. My wife thinks he's a good dude. He's a good dude. What do I think of usury? To me, it doesn't matter whether or not you have usury, debt-based, fiat, silver. It doesn't matter what your economic style is. There's underlying forces that will always play out. Excuse me. To understand those economic forces and how to position yourself in accordance to it. That's the only thing that's important, because there's no system that is going to benefit everybody all the time and be like in a position in which everybody can hold hands and sing Kumbaya. It's not going to work like that. There is no system that exists in. There is a blip, a moment in time in which that the opportunity for the average everyday person is presented, like that of the United States when we were a manufacturing powerhouse. There is those moments of opportunity, but it's in a timeline of transition, right? Going from being a poor nation to an industrious people, raising the standard of living until you fall into luxuries, and then the separation of everything that, you know, the rich and the poor, and the collapse of everything that happens from it. But understanding that it's a cyclical thing. It's just going to go down that road. And although we can look at times and say, hey, man, what about this beautiful moment right here? Can't we keep that going forever? No, you can't, right? Because the moment that you enjoy that hard work, it's over. You worked really hard to get to this position, then you moved into luxuries and it all fell apart, right? Because what's the point of working hard if you don't get to enjoy it? That's why people get mad at the whole system. They're like, no, I work really hard. I want to enjoy it. No, you can't. If you enjoy it, the whole thing falls apart. Right? Like, that's why it's not something that can be maintained forever. It's a cyclical thing. You have to understand where you are in the cycle. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wish we were in that rising as an industrious nation, because everybody would have all these wonderful opportunities. Right? And that their average day job would be enough. And we could all be like, hey, man, this is great. You know, we all get to raise together and rise together, and single income producing enough for the whole household. Look how wonderful of an experience this is. And then eventually that fades away, and then we can't do it anymore because it's a cycle. I appreciate the appreciation. Right on, man. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That's right. Listen, this is bullshit. Don't watch news to be entertained. Huh. All right. What the news? What the news to be informed of fake narrative. Watch. Yeah. Watch the news to be informed of fake narratives. Well, yeah, and really, if you watch the news, you can, and you, if you like, when it came to understanding the monetary policy strategies based off of the communications of the Federal Reserve, and then I would watch them communicate on the mainstream media about monetary policy, I'm like, that's not what you were doing. Like, that's the message that you're delivering out here on the mainstream media is not the same one that I am receiving through your speeches. Why is there these two? Oh, right. Mainstream media narrative is the monetary policy delivery. The speeches is the strategy in which that they are going to conduct themselves. So, noticing that taking place that says, man, this communication on mainstream media from the Federal Reserve seems to be very different than the message that they are delivering through their words and speeches that's in the documents to the other central bankers out there. When you recognize these two different communications happening, you then recognize how it is that they are conducting their monetary policy through the mainstream media narrative. All right? Seeing that to be the case, most people don't recognize it. They look at that mainstream media narrative and say, hey, this is the Fed's monetary policy. And that's not right. That's not right at all. It is the monetary policy delivery, but it's the message that is the monetary policy that people are receiving. And as long as they receive that message in the fashion that the Fed is wanting to deliver it, then the monetary policy is going to work. Right? And that's what's so funny about it is that once you recognize it in that fashion, you say, that's why they tell it the way they do. That's why we're trying to get to our 2% target. You know, it's like horseshit. No, you're not. You were trying to be moderately above 2% for the last 5 years through everything that you have ever said inside of your statements, but yet not a single person heard that. The only thing they heard was 2% target because that's the only thing that was being delivered through the mainstream media narrative. All right? So difficult to understand that, but when people do recognize it and see it, like many people here do on the Uneducated Economist, it becomes very obvious. This is one of the reasons why I was able to call out lumber as easily as I do. So many times I will find on the mainstream media narrative, tariffs are going to cause lumber prices to go through the roof. And I'm like, no, it's not. I've said it over and over again. That is the dumbest thing that I have ever heard. I don't know why it keeps popping up on mainstream media news articles and interviews and all this commentary about how it is that tariffs are going to drive lumber prices through the roof. It is the most naive thing I've ever heard. It doesn't work like that. It never has. There's been tons of tariffs and duties put on lumber, Canadian lumber, for decades now. It never does what it is that these people were anticipating it doing. And so when I was reading those articles and people were like, dude, what is it going to happen? What is lumber prices going to do with the tariffs? And I'm like, nothing. Stop. All right. Stop paying attention to that stuff. It is completely inaccurate, asinine information. Don't follow that stuff. But because nobody has any access to any other information when it comes to the lumber industry, there is no way that they would be able to see it in any other way. That's why it was so easy for me to call it out, is because I have an insane amount of information at my fingertips because I live in the Pacific Northwest, because I do retail sales for a living, because I know mill operators, because I know logging operations, because there's really no corner of this industry that I can't see. So when I hear something so naive as, well, the tariffs are going to cause Canadian lumber prices to force a house up $10,000, and I'm like, who makes this shit up? You know, like literally. Because I hear it over and over again, but yet there's nothing out there that proves that. Mm-hmm. So you start seeing this stuff for yourself, and pretty soon the mainstream media is a joke. There's literally nothing on there that is useful. If you do not do your own research and you are listening to the mainstream media deliver information and that's what you roll with, you are getting propagandized information and you fall right into it. I see it plain as day with monetary policy and the lumber industry. Those are two things that I focus hardcore on more than anything else out there, and it is very obvious to me that they do not deliver accurate information on either one of those topics. They just don't. And it's so crazy because I see so much people talking about things that are just not accurate, you know, especially when it came to the inflationary fight. Oh, the Fed doesn't know what they're doing. Inflation's running out of control. It's really damaging. It's really hurting. They can't seem to get it down to their 2% target. And I'm like, how many people are going to repeat this over and over again, not realizing that they are absolutely stupid to the monetary policy? And I don't mean to sound so arrogant when I say it that way, but that's really the case. The Fed was going for moderately above 2% for some time. There is so much documentation of it, but not one single blip of that on the mainstream media. Nothing. Literally nothing. Instead, all they talked about was a 2% target that the Fed was not trying to get to. So strange. But that's the way it works. That's how they do this now. You know, the news is not delivering information of accuracy. It's propagandized information to guide the sheep, to guide the people. And it's not even the sheep, it's just to guide the people because there's super intelligent people who are not falling for the idea that government is good. They believe that there is a new world order. They try to recognize it, and then they go and say stuff like hyperinflation is being caused by the money printer, and they literally feed the power right into the Federal Reserve. The very institution that they're trying to fight, they deliver all the power that they need. Here you go, Fed. All the like, we hate you, but here all the power you need. Hyperinflation scenario destroys the dollar. Feed you more power. And they don't even realize they're doing it. And that's again clever delivery through the mainstream media narrative. It's actually when you step back and you try not to give it any kind of like criticism or value or anything, like you just try to look at it in a very like neutral way, they pulled that shit off well. Like, holy crap, you guys lied to everybody, you pulled it off, you said that you didn't want this inflation, but you really did. Nobody knew it. Man, how incredible that they were able to do that. Looking for opportunistic reflation, and everybody says, oh man, inflation is so painful, and they're like, yeah, it's real painful on you guys. I mean, I'm sorry, yeah, it's real painful on you. I can promise you AI is going to be a presence for the near future. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, everybody uses them. All right, I never worry about money, just time. Yeah, really, time is everything. Why be concerned about accuracy when you can create your own algorithm of truth? It's a sickness. All right, so markets going higher no matter what short-term pain, but QE must happen and will, right? No, QE will happen once the Federal Reserve has interest rates back at the lower bound of zero. So as people are like, oh man, QE is right around the corner. No, it's not. QE happens when you're at the lower bound of zero. The only reason why they would be at the lower bound of zero is because the neutral interest rate is also near the lower bound. If the neutral interest rate is elevated due to the fact that we had credible threats of tariffs that elevated the inflation expectation and pulled that neutral interest rate higher, if they can continue to do that one way or the other, like if the whole tariff thing eventually goes away and there is no more tariffs or something like that, and the credible threat of that is just alleviated and the Supreme Court decides that they're illegal or something and the whole thing gets dropped, right? I almost assure you, almost guarantee you now, there will be something else that will be used to create a credible threat of inflation. I don't know what that is. Is it tariffs? Is it COVID? Is it financial collapse? Is it war? Is it something natural disaster of some other sort? I don't know. But they will figure out some way to keep the supply chain broken somehow, to create the inflation or the threat of an inflation expectation. By doing that, you can move that neutral interest rate. Moving the neutral interest rate off the lower bound to zero or away from the lower bound was the goal. It is working, right? If you move that neutral interest rate higher and you move it up closer to the Fed funds rate, the economy becomes less restricted. Now, how many people look at it that way? I don't know. Very few. I know this is something that I've learned from the Fed itself, and I've tried to share that many times on how it is that that low neutral interest rate was the problem, and that with the elevated inflation and inflation expectation due to the credible threats, then you're going to move that neutral interest rate off the lower bound of zero or away from the zero lower bound. So when the Federal Reserve does drop interest rates, they can get it below neutral enough to actually stimulate the economy. There's no need to use quantitative easing if you can stimulate the economy with the dropping of interest rates. Now, if you cannot get far enough below neutral to actually stimulate the economy, then you will need quantitative easing. But it can only occur at the lower bound of zero. This is because all the massive quantity of purchasing of the treasuries has to be done at a low interest rate. This is important to understand. Quantitative easing occurs at the lower bound of zero and mostly gets its stimulating effect through the forward guidance, promising that they are going to keep interest rates extra low, extra long for an extended period of time and continue in the balance sheet expansion. That credible threat of that action, extra low interest rates and balance sheet expansion, generally triggers the mindset of the people an inflationary scenario, and then they act accordingly on it. It doesn't work very well. Quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4 proved that to be the case. They took interest rates to zero, took the Fed's balance sheet of $850 billion to over $4.5 trillion, and over the course of those years, failed to produce an inflationary scenario. The quantitative easing doesn't work. Forward guidance barely works. What does work? Credible threats. Severing of the supply chain. When you sever the supply chain and you prevent things from flowing through the system in an efficient way, prices will go up. They find their inflationary scenario from it. If you can keep that supply chain broken, that's the key, right? Keep that supply chain broken. Credible threats of tariffs, disruption to the supply chains, whatever it is that you need to do. If you can do that, you will keep the inflation expectations elevated. If you can keep the inflation expectations elevated, you will pull that neutral interest rate higher. Again, I try to repeat this over and over again so that people can internalize it, because this is what's happening. You know? I say, when are they going to fire up quantitative easing? Once they take the Fed funds rate back to the lower bound of zero. If they took it to zero right now, we would most likely find a stimulating effect because the neutral interest rate has risen. Now, how much of a stimulating effect that will be, I don't know. I don't even know if the Fed knows, because the neutral interest rate is not something you can observe in real time. But they are, many of them, under the impression that the neutral interest rate has risen, except for Myron, the newest Fed official who believes it has dropped. I don't know. I am lazy. I need a better AI version. You know, it's funny because somebody says, man, I like your videos, but they're way too complicated and too long. Can you shorten them up into a 4-minute segment? No, they can't be shortened up into a 4-minute segment. Anybody who thinks that they can do that is going to miss out on the information, because there is no way that that can be done. All right. I mean, you might be able to get some blips of information out there, but it's not going to be understood in a fashion in which that can be truly internalized and useful. That doesn't happen in a 4-minute video. It happens from relentless studying and breaking of the old belief systems. Are we calling it quits yet, guys? I mean, I'm like, what, 2.5 hours into this video? I mean, we're like, I mean, how much power do I even have? I mean, my phone's going to die here in a few minutes. All right, videos can be cut to clips, but full moon car hangs can't. Yeah. And there's just too much. There's too many pieces, too much information, and it's too, I don't even know how to describe it, esoteric, right? It's information that is not well understood or even known. And you have to have almost a specialized understanding of the information in order to receive it. It's like, it really is almost like speaking a whole other language, like learning another language. The words that these bankers use, we understand the definitions of them. Like we can tell you the definitions of the words they're using. It's not like they're not making sense. The problem with it is that they use them in such a way that it's almost as if it's code, like they're speaking in a code. And ultimately they are. Now, once you recognize the language and you recognize the code, it's very clear. The problem that I have now faced is that people say, man, I love your information, but some of the things that you talk about, I just simply don't understand. And I realize that I have even slipped into speaking in a way that a lot of these, central bankers and the Fed speak communicates. Not realizing that now I'm speaking a lot of their own language, and that now the way that I have been trying to share the information becomes lost to a lot of people because they don't understand the words. They don't understand the way that it's being spoken or being used. They then say, I get what you're talking about, but they don't understand the context of it. And that's hard because, again, it's like a language. You're not going to be able to pick that up in a 4-minute video. It takes relentless time and time and time again before it finally is just like, okay, it sinks in. Then a 4-minute video might actually be somewhat informative because you have already internalized all this information. And that way, that 4-minute video actually comes out in a way that says, hey, man, I can retain some of that information out there. But for the most part, if I was to tell somebody, it was just like, dude, the Federal Reserve's not going for a 2% target. They're actually going for moderately above 2% for some time to make up for the fact that they failed to achieve the 2% target over the previous 10 years. And there's plenty of Fed documents that prove it. And then I left it at that. Nobody would have heard it. They might have heard it one time and go, man, that's nuts. And then never internalize it because all the rest of the information says something completely opposite of it. But if I came out here and did 15 45-minute videos breaking down the speeches of how it is that they were conducting themselves in a way that pushed inflation moderately above 2% for some time, and I did that over and over and over again for 45 minutes, 15 times in a row, I assure you somebody would internalize that. It would be understood, and they would get it. And they would recognize it happening out there when they looked at the mainstream media articles and had conversations with people and all the other stuff that goes with it. But a 4-minute video would never have done that for them. All right. I am here for the chat. Yeah, you are, Kirk. All-nighter, thanks for the homework. Oh, all-nighters handing out homework. Right on, man. Comprehension is more enlightening than just understanding. Yeah. Yeah. And even something is like, for an example, I'm trying to put together the information so that I can really do a good video about the balance sheet constraints amongst these big banks that essentially sent the SOFR above the effective fund rate, because most people are looking at it as liquidity crisis. And I'm like, I think this has more to do with bank regulations than it does an actual liquidity crisis. There's liquidity tightening happening, and that's what's essentially triggering this. But as most people are focusing in on a crisis situation, I'm looking at it as a regulatory situation that's happening. So as I start studying into like the supplement leverage ratio and the liquidity coverage ratio, which essentially kind of channels where it is at the floor and the ceiling is when it comes to these big banks and the interest rates and stuff. It's a very complicated topic that makes it very difficult to then share in a way that people would then be able to internalize. Because like even I myself, I'm thinking, okay, how do I describe this in a way that makes sense to the average person, right? Because it is just so easy to say it's a liquidity crisis and then just leave it at that. And I'm like, well, kind of, but that's too easy of an explanation of it. It's like saying money printer go burr, prices go up, you know? It's just like, well, yeah, but it's not as simple as that. It's way complicated, and to understand it, we have to go deeper into it, right? It's more about, like with inflation, it's more about consumer and supply demand imbalances. Here, when we have this interest rate, and people say, well, this is a showing of the tightness of the liquidity that's within the markets, and I'm thinking, well, this interest rate probably wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the massive constraints within the bank regulation systems that is happening right now. And since that is also difficult to understand, the whole thing really becomes a big ball of misunderstanding of what it is that's happening out there. Yeah. Yeah. The fact that the liquidity coverage ratio and the supplement leverage ratio, that these two things even exist within the banking regulation system that doesn't get communicated very well or talked about very much. I think that that is probably one of the biggest issues that we now face when trying to look at the SOFR being above the effective fund rate. Nobody's going to see this, right? Very few. I guess there's some people, because obviously I got the information, so somebody else has to have it out there. But it's probably not going to get shared on the mainstream media that way. And that's unfortunate. Because then they can use that fear to actually guide the markets. Yeah. Because if most people looked at it and says, oh man, I'm not that feared, then they wouldn't be able to control the mindset. Alrighty guys, I'm going to call it quits. We are like 3 hours into this. My phone's about ready to die anyway. It's amazing how dedicated you guys are to this channel. I really appreciate it. All the support with all those massive super chats. Thank you so much for being here. We got 152 likes, 143 people watching. I love it when there's more likes than people watching. It really shows how much you really appreciate and enjoy the content. And I appreciate and enjoy doing this with you guys. So thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. Thank you for all those thumbs up. QE makes the rich richer. Don't believe the news. Yeah, it sure does. Well, put yourself in a position of asset allocation, and then you can grow rich with them, right? I mean, being in the stock market, being in real estate, being in the right business, then, you can grow rich right along with them. But anticipating that the day job is going to be enough, yeah, that's going to be a tough road. That's going to be a hard one. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.